Series. Today is blockchain and the future of information. Welcome. We have a good show for you guys in store. All right, Chris. We got some technical difficulties in the back because of Chris. All right, well, first I would like to introduce this beautiful space. It's a good co-working space. You can host amazing events here as well as this one. It's open 24/7, $125 a month, which I think is a steal compared to every other co-working spot. Yeah, host your own events and have fun at Hacker Dojo. So let me introduce ourselves. We are the Den. We are a blockchain career accelerator. Our curriculum has been reviewed by numerous CTOs and CEOs in the blockchain space, as well as we've had some success stories regarding placing these students into many of these companies. We do offer 14-week blockchain for developers. We do offer a Hyperledger, a brand new Hyperledger 8-week course. And our data structure and algorithms is filling up quick because we love to have this peer-to-peer network where everyone can learn together in a room. So we offer career support throughout the end to get you guys placed. And we want to announce our new partnership with University of Irvine Extension, and we'll be teaching classes there in April. So please come on out. And Tech Futures, great partners of ours. Here you go. Edgar.
Thank you. So my name's Edgar. I'm with Tech Futures Group. We are a nonprofit that offers 100% free business advice to tech companies and entrepreneurs. We're sponsored by the federal government and the state of California. So companies that benefit from our help the most are companies, early stage companies who have a prototype or better, have a proven business model and their team built out, and are raising their seed round of funding. We don't offer any space. We don't, like I mentioned, we don't take cash or equity for our services. We don't have any program or training element. And also we never kick you out. Once you're a client with us for as long as you're in business. All we are is just great advisors. So the way it works, we actually contract hours, about 40 hours a month, of each advisor to help companies for free. And these are some of the areas where our advisors kind of focus on and provide the help. Go to business strategy, business development, financial modeling, government grants, and fundraising. So we're measured on three things. We're measured on capital infusion, which is the money that we help you raise through private equity or government grants, jobs, and revenue. The way it works is companies apply on our website, we review applications, and then we send it to a potential advisor, and the advisor has a final say if they take you on or not. And that usually depends on interest, bandwidth, and experience in the space you're in. So you're at the center of our services. These are just some of the entrepreneurs and residents that take you on. And around them are specialty advisors like patent attorneys, people who develop in manufacturing, financial modelists, and people who focus on financial government grants. All right, thank you. I encourage you guys to apply.
So today we have a special treat with no introduction, Ash.
Hello. Can you guys hear me in the back? If you could just, okay, great. Well, good evening. Thank you for being here and having me. Special thanks to the Den for that wonderful introduction, short and sweet. I'll talk myself into it. So how many people have been part of this series, the blockchain episodes? Have you guys followed it, or is this just trying to get a sense of the crowd? Okay, well, I guess we have much to discuss then. So just in terms of a quick introduction here, I am the CEO of this blockchain venture called Friday Night Labs, and I'm joined here today with my co-founder Nahush. If you could just wave, yeah. So I'm the CEO, he's the CTO. We're actually classmates from Berkeley. We're part of the computer science program way back in the day. I'm not going to date myself here. But we decided that corporate life could only go so far, and we're both excited about certain problems in the IT space as concerns personal data, advertising, that we felt blockchain technologies would be a very good fit for. So that's why we're building this venture together, which I'll give you some exposure to today as well. So suffice it to say, our mission is very modest. We want to make information exchange more efficient. And maybe I can talk you through some examples today, but largely I feel there's a lot of personal data and information that we have in terms of we all have problems, you guys have solutions that could benefit someone else, but there is no efficient mechanism to share it. We always have to rely on, say, an online service like Google, Yelp, et cetera, to share that information. We're trying to see how new technologies such as blockchain can make it more efficient. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so let me also get a feel for the audience that we have here. So just take a few minutes here, and I'd love to understand just really quickly, if you wouldn't mind just mentioning your name and what's your goal from today. If it's pizza, that's okay. Beer, that's fine. I'm mostly here for the pizza, right? But so yeah, if you could just tell me if you have any exposure to blockchain, what you're trying to learn today, and let's say, have you used any cryptocurrencies? Are there any government agents in the house today? Taxation? No? Okay, so you can be open about it. All right, tough crowd. So let's get started over here, please. Yes, sir.
Jason Martin, and advisor one of our events. Yeah, the questions about blockchain stuff to ask. I've been in this since photography gig in the 90s. Followed that all the way through into blockchain. Didn't get into Bitcoin until the end of 2010. So I didn't realize it was peer-to-peer. I was thinking of previous projects that we built other cryptocurrencies. Just explained terribly to me at the beginning, and hopefully, through this series and stuff like that, people will be explaining properly what it is.
It's okay. In our books, you still qualify to be a crypto OG. It's 90s. Okay, thank you, Jason. And then what about you, sir? If you could just introduce yourself.
John, I'm innocent enough to learn about what blockchain is about.
Great, you're in the right place. Thank you, John. And then gentleman in the back there.
My name is Jesse, and I've also your last four, and I was with cryptocurrency since maybe middle of 17.
Sorry, 17? 2017. Okay. That's great. Thank you, Jesse. And then we could just go around the corner there.
My name is Amy, I'm just
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Chris. I've also been to a few of these events, and basically just trying to learn how blockchain and enterprise side.
Enterprise side. Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with it.
Okay, yeah. We'll be focusing more on consumer because that's just happens to be my passion. But if you have any questions, enterprise, I can probably chime in as well. Lady in the back, please. Wonder why? Excellent, thank you. Excellent. Go ahead, please.
My name is
blockchain can be used for. I hear that it's been trying to be used to consumer and enterprise.
Right.
I hear different explanations from different people.
Sure,
So
sure.
it's all deepen my understanding from this session.
Excellent. Yes, go ahead. Hmm. Right. Excellent. And then last but not the least, yeah, I think thank you very much, Sean. I think we have a pretty good group here. It cuts through, I guess, every single spectrum that I can imagine, including, we can talk about finance. Is there another person here? I'm sorry, I missed you. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Oh, wow. That's a lot of white papers. All right. Great, thank you. I'm very excited about this session. We can have a good discussion. So one thing I would really dislike if I have to do a monologue here for an hour. I don't think anyone wants to see that. So if there's any questions or if you have a comment, I'd really welcome that. Let's further our understanding with a great discussion here. Okay, so let me give you yes. Yes, I will definitely do that, yes. So this is being recorded, and let me say hello and welcome to our viewers on the live stream as well. Thank you. All right, so here's just a view of the agenda. So I want to cover, beyond the basics, I feel like as a group we have a good understanding of what we've seen, I guess, in the media and from a definition standpoint. But I want to focus on why blockchain actually matters. I also want to give you an overview of the evolution of technology until today as regards blockchain and how did we get here. I also want to focus on how blockchains can create a new internet of value, which I heard some people touch upon as well. And then I also want to then finish off with a consumer application in mind. Some people may be more interested in business applications. We can talk about that as well. Okay, so who's ready for an exercise? Don't worry, it's a thought exercise. I don't mean to. Okay, but this is meant to drive the point home about why a blockchain actually matters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some claims to verify. I'm just going to make some statements. You guys tell me whether you agree or disagree with them, okay? Here's the first claim. You are present in this room. Yes? Here's some yes? No? No? Okay. One honest fella in the back. All right. Physically present. All right. You guys agree you're all present in this room? Yeah? So this is a claim that you can verify yourself. It's self-evident, right? So you're obviously aware of that. But let's say there's someone else who's not in this room. Let's say, I don't know, a significant other who you told that you're going to be here tonight, but he or she is wondering if you're actually at the bar or playing poker with your buddies. How would she actually verify that you're here? What are some mechanisms that he or she would undertake to verify that claim? Any idea? It's not a trick question. It's very obvious, hopefully. So how could someone verify that you're here? Take your word for it. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. So someone just calls you and, okay, well, you're here. Fine. What are some other mechanisms? Yes, sir. Yes, you could call Hacker Dojo and say, hey, this guy, is he here or not? Okay. Anything else? Sorry? Yes, so there could be some location sensors. Okay, I'll take that further and say there's probably a camera here that's recording you, and those kind of things could be used, right? Okay? Yes.
What if the husband gives Hacker Dojo
Ah, very creative, very creative. Yes, yes, I don't want to get into anyone's personal life here, but if it means so much to you, you could pay someone to basically lie on your behalf, right? Okay, it's a similar question. So let's say, taking on the idea a little bit further. So let's say, how many people are in this room right now, right? I'm going to say it's about 25, right? But so taking that idea further, you can count for yourself. You can probably form teams, and you could say, hey, Sean in the back, I think it's 25. You think it's 20? Okay, well, average is about 22. So we can settle on an approximate number of 22. So we can kind of network and get to a collective understanding of the facts, right? Does everyone understand that? Any questions about that? Okay. All right, here's the next claim I have for you guys. Elon Musk is here. Okay? I say he's here. Hey, Elon, how you doing? Thank you for making my meetup. Right? Do you guys feel I have an incentive to lie about this? Do I have an incentive? Yeah, sure, I'm a speaker, and yeah, a celebrity was here at my meetup. That gives me credibility. I have incentive to lie about it. Do you guys actually think I would do that? And if not, why not? Because I'd be caught, right? If there's so many people here that this guy's just lying, my reputation is at stake, and then you can be easily caught about it, right? There's a bunch of people that are observing, there's cameras and such. So I wouldn't lie about it because there's checks and balances in the system, right? Okay, did you notice that in all these examples, you needed to rely on let's say, it's a fancy way of saying someone else, an intermediary, right? So, a camera, a location sensor, or other people in our case, or some other party. You couldn't just believe that the claim was true, right? You guys notice that? Okay. So that's the point of a blockchain. What if we can agree on facts without relying on an intermediary? If you guys understand nothing else from this presentation, this is the key point. A blockchain is a technology that allows us to agree on facts without using an intermediary. That's actually a profound concept, right? And there's a fancy way of saying decentralized consensus, but consensus is basically what I was driving when I was talking to you guys. The claims of, hey, how many people are in this room? Sean, you helped me out with some estimation. Jesse, you might agree with it. So we have some consensus that we got to agree on some facts, right? So that's the point of a blockchain.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Blockchain is just a log file.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't have a mechanism to remove the intermediary. The intermediary does the function. Does blockchain, so how does blockchain mechanism or some good machine which is removing the intermediary?
Blockchain,
Blockchain is a log file.
let me blow your mind here. Blockchain is the intermediary. You don't have to rely on anything else but the blockchain.
But I can write it.
You can bribe it, right? So yes, so we consider, I think, are you a security person? Security, okay. But so you're bringing up some good points. Sure. So it's, of course, any source of truth can be contaminated, right? And there's incentives that exist, as we discussed in the third claim that I presented to you guys, that there are some rational incentives that exist to lie. No different from saying that your Bank of America account doesn't have $100,000, it has 100 million, right? But can we construct checks and balances that actually don't require a trusted party? Can we use cryptography? Can we use math? Can we use security mechanisms that we've developed and mastered over the last 40 years? That's what a blockchain allows us to do. Now, the security guarantees, depending on the consensus mechanisms, can be different. So in a proof of work system, there's a disincentive to hack and lie about facts because you have to actually spend a lot of money to hack the blockchain or to put a misstatement of fact in there. A proof of stake system has some other mechanisms. You have to basically commit a certain amount of funds, and then you stand to lose your funds if you're lying. So there's some checks and balances in place. But I take your point. Ultimately, no system is foolproof, right? But that's an unreasonable standard. How many people have heard about hacks and, from everything from online services to bank accounts? Everything can be hacked. Security is a cat and mouse game, right? But we always have to evaluate whether the costs to implement certain amount of security are worth the benefits, right? So in this case, we have an example where the math in cryptography actually works pretty well. You know, Bitcoin is an example of that. It's a chain that's been running for 10 years plus, and it's got, what's the market cap today, $100 billion or something, or lower? But so it's secured that much of value without ever being hacked. All the hacks you heard about, at least against Bitcoin, have been exchanges and such. The network itself, the source of truth has never been hacked. So it's proven itself in production. Is it foolproof? Of course not. There can be some, any system can be compromised. Did I answer your question? It's a long answer.
Against cryptography against the machine mechanism. If
Yes.
you lie to cryptography,
Yes.
it will encode lie, it will hide lie for you. So again,
Right.
that doesn't solve the problem.
Well, it's a longer question. We can take it offline. But the simple explanation is that the people that are checking against the lie have a disincentive to collude with you, right? So that's the key point. I can explain in more detail, at least in a proof of work system. We can talk offline about that. So that's the way it works. So going back to this, you realize that the core concept we discussed of agreeing on facts without an intermediary, isn't money just a special case of that? If I take out my wallet and there's a dollar bill in it, well, it's just a piece of paper with some dead guy on it, right? What actually gives it value is that I can take it to the Central Bank of the United States and they will give me what in return? $1. So $1 gets you $1. It's just a kind of a guaranteed mechanism that we agree to the fact that this piece of paper is valuable in terms of $1. So that's an agreement of facts. But if we could have a system that doesn't require an intermediary, you can implement any set of facts on it, including money, right? So we could say, Jason, you have 100 Bitcoins. That's a fact. Yeah, you're fantasizing there, right? That wouldn't be so bad. We can agree on that fact. And that's all we need for money to work. That's how all bank accounts work, okay? So as I was mentioning, this is actually a pretty profound concept because if you think about the history of commerce, ever since, agriculture, and if you're a history buff, you know that the foundation of accounting is actually when people started to store grains and such. They needed some mechanism to record, to say, hey, Nahush, you have 100 sacks of wheat and I have 50 sacks of rice, and we can exchange it, right? So that was the mechanism of accounting. Question in the back?
So the custody of the truth
Yes.
moved to the users of that network. Custody of the truth is moved to the users of the network.
Yeah, so it's, you're correct. It's a subtle nuance. If you look at proof of work systems like Bitcoin, it's actually the miners, the securers of the network, not just the users. So if I just have a wallet that I'm transacting and I'm actually, the security doesn't exist because of my use of it. It exists because someone is actually mining and securing the network. But largely your point is well taken. That's correct. Go ahead.
Currency today has a store of value associated. It's gold, or it's the United States backing of that government. Where is the store of value?
Yeah. So this is a common misconception. Do you know that we don't have a gold standard in the U.S.?
Yes, we don't, but
Right.
we have the full faith of the American government.
Right.
States.
Yes, so the full faith of the US government. So there's some trust that your trust cannot be violated, right? So what if that trust can exist via other mechanisms, like via cryptography, that, whenever you send a transaction to someone else, it can't be faked, it can't be altered. So that trust can be implemented via non-intermediary mechanisms as well. But you're correct, money is basically trust. I just give you an example, right? I can have a piece of paper, some dead guy on it. How can I buy a burrito with it? Because some other person, the person who's selling it to me, believes that it's valuable, right? Yes, so there's a mutual belief that it's valuable. Do you know that, if I could just take it further, it's the history of money. We're asking good questions here. But I assume you're familiar with the history of money and how commodity has been used. I think you mentioned gold as well. Seashells have been used as money. right? Of course, precious metals have. So if you look at a seashell example, if you go, say, 400 years ago, let's say there's a Native American tribe that you're, trading sacks of wheat with, and they say, well, here you go, here's some seashells. That's what we use as money. I'm like, wait a minute, I want some gold, right? It's like, what do you mean you want gold? Gold is useless to us. We want these seashells. That's what's valuable to us because we believe that that's money.
Because it represents scarcity.
Yes,
That economy.
that's right.
But for the wool,
Yes.
the thing that's scarce is gold or diamonds or something else.
What if we were having this conversation 400 years ago and I was trying to give you seashells? To me, seashells, okay, so we can break it down a little bit further and understand there's certain properties of money, right? I think you mentioned a couple. It should be a good medium of exchange. It should be scarce. It should have reliability and trust. It should be, depending on how you look at it, fungible. So those properties of money can be implemented via different mechanisms, right? So there's nothing, what I'm trying to drive at is, there's nothing special about the paper bills in our wallet. In fact, this is just an aberration in history. If you go back a long time enough, there's all sorts of things that have been used as money, right? In fact, do you know that we had private money in the United States about 150 years ago? We didn't have one kind of money. There was legal tender issued by banks. You could have the Bank of, where are we, Santa Clara? Bank of Santa Clara could issue $100. And that will be worth less if you go to San Francisco because the Bank of San Francisco says, Santa Clara, I don't really know about them. $80, right? So that's how it works. You're correct. It's actually trust. That's the main point here. If there's mutual trust, I mean, if you look at, I don't have any experience with this, but in jails, cigarettes are currencies, right? No one actually wants dollar bills because they get confiscated, as I've been told. But so cigarettes are currency, right? So how could that be? Because the person you're trading with accepts it. So money is a kind of a strange concept. So as it turns out, Bitcoin and other high-scale cryptocurrencies actually serve all the properties of money that we talked about. And they're actually more secure and hedged against inflation. Right? We haven't even talked about I don't want to go into a political bent with libertarianism and such. But you know about inflation, right? There's nothing, you have belief in the US dollar, right? Because of the stability of the U.S. government and such, but the debt we have keeps rising, and it's a belief that we're not going to be insolvent. But depending who you ask, there is a level of crisis around: are we going to be able to pay back our entitlements, and taxation is going to cover for it or not? I mean, fundamentally, there's nothing different between, say, the U.S. government in terms of where it's going versus, say, the Greek crisis, and we've seen a lot of economies fail because they became insolvent. On Friday, you have belief in the money, but on Saturday, because the government defaults on its debt, all of a sudden it's useless.
How does this get around inflation?
Because the money supply is predictable. At least in Bitcoin, the money, which is the new coins that are released on a schedule. So it's not anyone's whim and fancy that, hey, China's asking for its money back, so and we don't want to raise taxes because it's politically inexpedient. So, hey, Fed, party at the Fed, let's just raise the money supply. That happens all the time.
You can't do that.
No, you can't. You can't. No. That's, yeah, so that's correct. The protocol defines how the coins are released, right? So it's we don't have a Fed-like system in Bitcoin. We have, basically the code acts as the government, if you will. So it says every 2 weeks, there's going to be a difficulty adjustment. I don't want to get into a lot of technical details, but suffice it to say, to answer your question, inflation is checked against because the money supply is capped and released on a predictable basis. Okay? All right, so yeah. Yes.
Bitcoin was the only cryptocurrency, I can agree, you can do 1 million.
Yes.
2,000 cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
You can use one tomorrow basically, as currency.
Yes, I can.
There is
Yeah.
infinite amount of, complete amount of currency.
Sure. Yes.
So again, it's like things like you could predict dollars or stocks. See, not only
Okay.
dollar, even a Facebook stock is money basically. So money derivatives, most protected instruments, protected even is possible. Most
Yes.
IPOs, stocks, they are
Yes.
a form of money, and people are living off
Sure,
it.
of course. So are cigarettes, so are seashells. The idea is for money to be successful, enough people have to have belief in it, right? So how many people would buy Ash coin? Would you buy some Ash coin today?
There are 5,000 stocks on the
Yes, yes, and there are 200 currencies in the world, right? So the fact that you have a bunch of currencies and a new one can be created using blockchains is technically correct, but misses the point. Money requires, good money, sound money requires network effects, right? Going back to the key point which the gentleman raised is it's trust, it's liquefied trust. And enough people have to have that trust so that I can buy a burrito with Bitcoin and the guy who's selling me the burrito knows that it's not gonna be useless. They're not gonna accept Ash coin because they don't know who Ash is. They don't know whether it's gonna go to zero, whether it's a pump and dump scheme. Just because there's open source and other nature of the projects does mean there's gonna be a lot of cryptocurrencies, but very few of them are gonna be of any value. Right? So the power law distribution, 80-20 effects apply here as well. Okay, I've given some answers, maybe not to people's satisfaction, but I'll be around so we can have a more spirited discussion about this. Okay, all right, so if you're academically inclined, blockchains are a great discipline if you want to really challenge yourself and learn both computer science and economics. In fact, this is the biggest draw for me. These are subjects I really love, economics and computer science, and this is a great intersection of the two with some really good applications of it. So I'll really invite everyone to understand this better. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of the blast from the past, right? I want to focus on what I'm calling the technology value chain. So let's look at any technology product, let's say a smartphone, presume everyone uses it. There's a lot of value drivers in any technology product. So there's the hardware, the software, the services, the data, those are the primary components. But what's most valuable in those products often changes over time. So let's see how that evolution has occurred. So raise your hand if you ever used a Mac. Yeah, it's okay, we don't judge. Yeah, all right, cool, yeah, I have as well, yeah. So if you were around in the 80s, this little baby was, everyone was lusting about after this product. This was the in thing in 1984, right? And if you recall, the price of a Mac was, and actually Steve Wozniak chose this, it was $666, right? Very specific. I don't know if he had some devilish intent with that or not, but $666, and about 90% of that cost, if you look at the actual bill of materials, was hardware, right? The printed circuit board and power mechanism, all those are 90% of the cost. And then they threw in some VisiCalc and so forth, but that was a very small part of the cost. So it was mostly hardware. The value chain was centered around hardware. Okay, then we got into the crazy 90s with Mr. Bill Gates rising through the ranks and basically taking over the world with Windows. Microsoft became the most valuable company in the world, Bill Gates the wealthiest individual, and you could clearly see that the center of attention in technology, the key value driver, became software, the operating systems and the applications with it. But pretty soon you also had the web taking over, and then you had services like Google come up. And then you had, besides services, if you look at a company like Facebook today, worth $500 billion, and we were actually having this thought experiment the other day that, hey, you could take 1,000 engineers, spend 6 months, and entirely create the software, the services, of course, the hardware of Facebook, right? You can do that in 6 months. How could that be valuable at $500 billion? Well, the answer, of course, is the data, right? Or really, strictly speaking, the information. By the way, who knows the difference between data and information? What's the difference? You know. Yeah? Is there any difference? Yeah? What's the difference? Data is information? Pattern in data. Okay, yeah, that's good, yeah. So largely speaking, information has utility, right? So, and it's not a subtle point, it's there's a lot of data being created, but what you want to focus is on information that actually help you make decisions or has some sort of utility, right? I can take your phone number, that's information. I can take mine, that's information. But if you add them and divide by 2, that is data, right? So it's important because as you consider blockchain networks and such, you want to focus on information. Okay, so here's a pattern that's emerging. Not that just this evolution from hardware, software, services to information, but also that the previous value driver had to be commoditized for something else to be more valuable, right? So that's a trend that I'm seeing. So I mentioned the bill of material for the Mac, 90% hardware. Well, it's hard to find a desktop device today that says, hey, 90% of the $300 that you can pay to buy a desktop today is hardware. No, it's like more like maybe 5%, right? So that value has shifted over time, but the previous drivers have to be commoditized. So here's my hypothesis. Information has to be commoditized to create the next wealth cycle, right? And what's the question is, what is that next wealth cycle? And this is my hypothesis. I don't know if this is true, but with blockchain networks, we can have network trust. So you don't have to rely on an intermediary. You can actually commoditize information, make it freely available, exchange between peers. I have a problem, you have a solution, let's exchange. Let's use blockchain as the system of record to exchange that information and exchange value. So that's the hypothesis that I'm leading with today. So, okay, all right, so let me switch to the current state of the internet, okay? There's some problem with the animation. I think it parsed the YouTube link. Okay, so here's, raise your hand if you agree with me, okay? The internet has been the greatest invention that humanity has brought to life, right? It's the best. And we've had about 20 years of the web. What is the current state of the internet, right? You have stupid ads everywhere. And you have, what's the CTR, the click-through rate on these ads? By the way, has anyone here clicked on an ad willfully in the last 6 months? Anyone here? Don't be embarrassed, I won't judge. No one, not a single, okay. Do you work for advertisers? Maybe you were testing your own ads. So yeah, I don't know anyone who's clicking on these ads. I think 0.05% CTR is too high. I don't know, there's been studies done that basically the entire internet is subsidized by rural people in the American South. They accidentally click on ads and end up subsidizing the internet for us. Right? But here's the point. Everyone talks about AI and we're a data company. Facebook's worth $500 billion. Google's got the best AI minds that money can buy, man. If you can spell AI, you can get a job at Google. Right? With all that human capital, all that crazy tech, all those servers, what do you think of a technology that's wrong 99.5% of the time? That's the state of the internet with ads today. Right? But I'm not done. Hear me out. We also have notifications everywhere, right? There's all these apps. Your coffee store has an app. You get in, you want a coupon? Download the app, right? And then it sends you notifications. You have 24 hours in a day. That's not changing. You want to sleep, you want to go to your job, take care of the kids, maybe you have 1 hour to use WhatsApp and Facebook. There's all these apps, 1 million apps, struggling and fighting for your attention. How is that sustainable? Okay, we've all heard of the privacy abuses. Privacy is dead because we get used to it. Right? I am assuming that my data is on the dark web. I don't even know. There's websites that let you check it. I'm too afraid. I'm assuming it's out there. 1 billion accounts hacked security, right? This is the state of security on the internet. 1 billion accounts hacked on Yahoo. If you made the mistake of staying at a Marriott hotel in the last 10 years, your passport is out there, sold on the dark web for $5, depending on the nationality. Credit cards, 30 cents. Social security numbers, 5 cents, right? You have to assume that your information's out there. It's not secure. This current model isn't working. And then we have the government, right? Government bureaucrats, if you've seen the, I watch these congressional testimonies of Sundar Pichai and Zuckerberg. for entertainment purposes. Right? There's some senator that shows up, and it's like, it's pretty clear they were fed the question. Right? It's like, literally, and these are well-paid individuals, right? They make 3-4 times the salary of average hardworking Americans. And they ask the question, so how does Facebook make money? And then Zucker was like, Senator, we show ads. Seriously? This is the government response. And we've seen stupid regulation like the GDPR. How many people have seen, you go to a website, oh, we show cookies, we use your data for advertising, right? Did that surprise anyone? But now I have to click on all these stupid dialogues, notifications, right? Because the government made them do it. And it's not just Europe, right? If you're running a global website, I've been involved with, I've built internet products for the last 15 years. I know how it's done. If there's some regulation in Europe, and they're fining me 3 times my revenue because some person could accidentally visit my site from Europe, I'm showing it everywhere, right? I don't care if you're an American user. I'm showing you the dialogue to just CYA, right? Does that solve the problem? You know, if you follow one of the great economists we've had, Milton Friedman, he said the government solution is usually as bad as the problem itself. And that's been absolutely seen with GDPR. Their heart's in the right place. Like, hey, we want users to know that your data is being stolen and stolen without your permission, right? Does that solve the problem? Does the average person know or care that the cookies, what the hell is a cookie? Now I have to click on, so the point is, this is what the internet is like today. We can do a lot better. Okay, so this is the, for fans of the Chappelle Show, I see some people are. There's a very good skit of, I can't play it here, it's a family-friendly audience, but if the internet was a real place, please go watch it, it's just hilarious, and sadly true. Okay, so there's a lot, my screen vanished, by the way, but it's okay, I can improvise. So there's a lot going here, but just to give you a sense of how, underneath the hood, how the business models and the numbers work out, I think most of you are familiar with this. So basically, everything on the internet is actually paid. There's no such thing as free services. You pay with your data, your privacy, and so forth. So creators and devs get subsidized by big platform companies like Google and Facebook. And people subsidize it through e-commerce, and ultimately, there's some advertising revenue that gets generated. And that's actually caused a lot of bad incentives and all the problems that we've discussed, right? So advertising itself isn't bad, but bad advertising is bad. And we've seen with the CTRs, 99.5% of advertising is bad and intrusive and annoying, right? So here's what we're trying to do. Can we create a new internet using blockchain technologies that uses the idea of disintermediation, right? We talked about how blockchain can do information exchanges in some way without relying on an intermediary, right? So if that could happen, then we can take out the platform companies, still have developers and apps, I'll talk about how that's possible, but at least save $200 billion in the advertising money that's spent globally, right? There's a famous saying in advertising, if you guys have ever worked in marketing, that I know half my advertising budget is wasted. I don't know which half. Right? So that's the predicament that brands are in. You can't not do, I used to work in marketing. I used to report to the CMO, and we had $500 million of advertising spend every year. And I would ask him, hey, so do you know are we actually selling anything? And it's, I don't know. But we have to spend it because our competitors are. How can you not be on Google and Facebook, right? So that's the predicament that brands are in. So everything happens for a reason. I'm not just here to rant about it. There's good reasons. The incentives that exist on the internet today encourage the kind of behavior and responses, including from the government, that we've seen. Yes. Yes.
My eyes are seeing it basically.
You're stealing.
Yes. My mind is planned about to run the mind.
Yes.
In a
Yes.
certain fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Okay.
people are watching ads.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This is actually well researched. is called banner blindness. For the last 10 years, we've studied this quite a bit. There's all sorts of independent organizations that have studied it. What they do is they ask people to come in, they browse the internet, Facebook, they see a bunch of ads, and they say, can you remember one brand that you saw? Not clicked, but one banner that you saw. Yeah, I saw a squiggly monkey and two guys juggling. No, that wasn't any of the ads. They can't remember any of the ads that they saw because they've seen so many of them, and our brain, thankfully, knows how to tune them out. You just know where to focus. So there's banner blindness, and it's well studied. So delivering of impressions could have some impact, but the user's attention isn't directed to the banners. So I can point you to some studies. You can also Google it, and hopefully you wouldn't see too many ads about it. Okay. All right, so let's focus on the big problems that my diatribe in the last 10 minutes has sparked. So the first thing is, look, I understand, not all advertising is bad, but the problem is people like to buy things. Right? I asked the question, how many people have clicked on an ad in the last 6 months? No one would, or people are too ashamed to admit. How many people bought something online in the last week? Can you please raise your hand? Okay. People love buying things. They just don't want to be sold to. It's the manner that, intrusiveness. You're buying, I'm trying to watch a YouTube video to go to sleep. And then there's an ad about, hey, do you want to buy a car? No, dude, I'm trying to sleep, right? I don't want to think about buying a car. So it's the context is lost in the way that people are sold to. That's the problem, right? But the only viable mechanism that exists so far is advertising. Right? We saw $200 billion. That's what's subsidizing the entire internet. Also, a word about privacy. We talked about how no one likes their privacy to be violated. But Jason, let me ask you, what's your cholesterol level? What's your cholesterol level? So don't have to answer that. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. But that was a weird question, wasn't it? You're thinking, what the hell is this guy? It just came in. What? Who is this guy? I can't let him into Hacker Dojo next time, right? But let's say if your doctor, your physician asks you the question, that'd be fine. Oh, thank you, doctor. That's great. Same question, different people, different circumstances. So privacy is a nuanced concept. People are willing to share information if you convince them that you're actually going to do right by them. Hence the example, right? With due apologies. I would plead the fifth. Okay, so, and the thing is, the current business models, if advertising is the only way you can make money, and data is the way you get more advertising effectiveness, then your incentive is clear. Build those data silos, right? I am launching an online service. I have no incentive to share with anyone else. I want to just create my silo, right? So this is what happens. This is the key point. On the internet, we have a service-centric view. There's Amazon's data. There's Google's data. There's Facebook's data. But there isn't Jesse's data. Right? I want to be able to use my Facebook personalization to buy a watch on Amazon. I can't. It shows me 500 results. It should know that my favorite color is blue. Facebook shows me advertising in blue all the time. They know it, right? And I want to pay with Google Pay checkout because I have their promotion. Can I do that? No, because it's a service-centric view. And the kids, they don't want to play with each other. The user be damned. So there's no user-centric view. Can we do better than this? Okay, what if? It's about data, ultimately, or I'm using information data interchangeably. What if you could provably control your data and it's secured through cryptography? You don't have to rely on Facebook. You don't have to count the word of a small developer that they're not using MongoDB with default credentials for the developers in there. What if you could, every instance of data, right? So it's not just that I have signed away my life to you. What if for every single data depth, right? You want to use my location right now? Use my permission. You don't have permission, infinitely. What if that could happen? What if you could know who is using your data so that you know that your bank right? That with the free checking, they're actually selling your data to mortgage companies right now. You ever wonder why you get so much junk mail, right, with offers and such? How do they know? It's because of the data sharing, the selling of your data. What if you could know who's actually using it and for what? What if you, the user, could be part of the business model, right? The $200 billion economy we talked about. Well, okay, you get free content for that, right? Facebook makes, for an American consumer, close to $80 a year. What if you could be a part of that business model? That's only fair, isn't it? And most importantly, here's my biggest gripe with the current state of the internet. It's not so much the money part of it. That's okay, I can deal with that. It's actually the other example I gave you with the Facebook personalization on Amazon and Google checkout rate. I want to have a user-centric view so that I can have more innovation, right? That's the key point. These centralization, the point, the major dissatisfaction with centralization is that they become gatekeepers of innovation, which is it's not censorship exactly, but Google says, yeah, you know, we could work with Amazon, but nah, I don't know, what's the business case? What's that? Well, what about the user? They have the business case. They want to use these services together, so they become gatekeepers of innovation. That's the biggest problem, right? So if you could exchange your data securely in a marketplace with other users and developers, that can serve you directly and switch services seamlessly, as I talked about a few times, right? What if you could have the right to be forgotten, right? Has anyone made any mistakes when they were young here? Not me, right? Are you comfortable, you know, the night out you had with your buddies, right? You went to, let's say, some establishments. Google and Facebook have your data, right, location. What if you're a serial killer? No, never mind. Let's focus on non-criminal scenarios. There's people, you know, it's common decency, and I heard Eric Schmidt say a few years ago that, and he's a great CEO and everything, I respect him, but he said, well, if you've done nothing wrong, you shouldn't have any concerns with Google keeping your data. No, I have plenty of concerns. I don't want my data out there, right? You don't have a right to be forgotten. What if there's a way that you could just press a button and your data just goes away, provably, securely, and in your control? So that's what we're trying to build, okay? So I'm going to propose to you that, and I'm going to use Bitcoin and blockchain interchangeably here. I am a Bitcoin enthusiast, so to me it's the same. Don't start any religious wars, and it's just other blockchain projects as well, I understand. But so if you could have a commodity ledger that stores your data securely in your control, so you're sovereign on your data, it's open source, it's available for a very low price, hence the commodity, so it could be efficient with your data. And what if you could have P2P marketplaces, some of which could be proprietary, that's fine, but that could broker interactions between participants, because ultimately that's what Google and Facebook do. They say, well, this piece of content is high ranking because 20 people watched it, or 5 people clicked on it, right? So hence additional ranking. So what they're doing is basically brokering interactions. So this is a need that doesn't get solved if the platforms go away, but has to be solved. So it could be a peer-to-peer marketplace like that. Okay, so what would that look like? This new internet, which doesn't have all the issues that we've talked about, what would that look like? So here's a proposal. You could have a personal agent, some sort of a client, maybe an app, right? Agent is a technical term. That could be running transparently to you, that becomes the custodian of your data, that writes the personal data to the blockchain, secured by your credentials, your private keys if you're familiar with it. And it could enter a P2P marketplace where other users could benefit from that data. And you could also have apps where basically you could build, say, a YouTube, where all the video information is in this P2P marketplace. And you could just say, hey, based on your personalization that I can decipher from the marketplace, and based on your interests, I can show you these videos. So you don't need YouTube necessarily for that. And accordingly, you could have devs that participate in this marketplace, and most importantly, you could have incentives through native tokens, the cryptocurrencies involved. So you can either spend $200 billion showing useless ads that are wrong 99.5% of the time, or you could do this. Yeah, so I envision multiple peer-to-peer marketplaces, but there will have to be some companies, something proprietary that comes up, because it can't exactly be open source if there's some business models around it as well, but there could be some open source marketplaces as well. But there'll have to be some developers that come up with that. It could be decentralized or it could be centralized, depending on what the business model is. I am more in favor of, so I am not a decentralization maximalist, okay? I don't think, this is a bit of a tangent. we have much to discuss. But I feel decentralization is a tool. Any Ethereum fans here? I think most of them are DevCon, right? So I don't have to be concerned about my personal safety here. Or maybe I do. Swat is in the back. So decentralization is a tool, right? You decentralize things that give you a benefit from decentralization, but there's also, decentralization doesn't solve all the problems. There's performance issues, there's maintenance of code, there's incentives that have to be created. So it's okay to be centralized, relax. As long as you do right by the user and give them value and benefits that justifies the cost of centralization, it's okay. So I envision a world where some of these P2P marketplaces could be open source, could be decentralized, but they could be centralized ones. Just as it exists today, in fact, there is decentralized versions of Facebook. Anyone here heard of Diaspora? You have, yeah. Yes. Cool, cool. Did you ever use it? You and no one else, right? So that's my point. You could have decentralized Facebook, but no one uses it because it doesn't have the fancy features. It doesn't work on mobile. It only works on Ubuntu, right? So 50 devs use it, very passionate about it, right? But no one else does. People like, my mom has a master's degree in computer science, so I wouldn't use her as an example. But, there's common people that couldn't use it. Right? So centralization has the advantage that you can incentivize people that, hey, you can actually own the source code so that you can have a business model around it. You can charge for it. That's okay. We're capitalists here. Right? It's okay to have a return, but it's not okay to waste a user's time, show them useless ads, and not have interoperability between the services you like. What if we could have that? That's okay. That's justifiably adding benefit to the users. Okay, so here's an example that I just want to run by you. And actually, this is what we're building. Nahush and I are building exactly this. So it's a Bitcoin-based consumer app for local recommendations. For example, restaurants, bars, those kind of things. Right? Okay, so let's lead with a problem. Let's say, you guys are, there's pizza, but let's say some other day you want some dinner. So the problem is you want to find a restaurant, right? It's, anyone been through that problem recently? Yeah? Looking for a restaurant? Yeah? Okay. So I assume most people use Yelp and Google. Does anyone use anything else? Decentralized applications? No? Yes.
In the area where I live,
Mhm.
all the local residents
Yes.
are part of one network.
Okay.
So trusted people
I see. Is it called Nextdoor? Is that what you use?
next door.
Okay, yeah, so Nextdoor is the other one. Yes, yes. That's right. Actually, I've used that. It's pretty high precision. Yeah, but I found it to be a little bit limiting sometimes, but yeah, that's another alternative as well that's coming up. Yeah, yeah, I understand. Okay, so Yelp, Google, Nextdoor-like services. Okay. So has anyone been dissatisfied using them? I'm curious. This is, I'd like to open this to the, yes, sir? Go ahead.
I was noticing lately that when I'm supposed to search for Yelp results, I want to regress a comment that only send it over to the app.
Yeah, yeah. So they force you into the app because, why? It's the data. It's the data, man. It's always the data. When you have the app, they can read stuff in the background. They can show you ads. They can send you notifications, engagement, right? Latest quarter wasn't so good. The ads are down. We need to increase page views by 30, 40%. Right? So yeah, they force you. They force you to use a client that you don't necessarily want to use because they have an incentive to, right? That's a dissatisfier. Anything else? What about the results themselves? Have you guys been burned by a Yelp review? it was a 4-star restaurant, but you went there and it was like, this is barely a 2-star in my books. Has that ever happened to anyone? Are they pretty good usually? They're almost all in the same range, yeah. So does it actually help? So if it's less than 4 stars, sorry? You don't trust them, right? So if it's less than 4-star, man, they must have murdered someone in the kitchen. Right? This is so hard. Yeah, so it's like, and what really, so these are good dissatisfiers that you guys, anything else anyone want to bring up? Okay, yes, go ahead, sir.
I mean, since you're mentioning both,
Yes,
I use searching along my route. all
Yes.
the time with Google,
yes,
and I often want the Yelp reviews on the route.
there you go. Interop is missing. You want the Yelp reviews because you like them and whatever constraints that they have. You like the Google Maps. Yelp's map is, let's say, nothing to write home about. But these kids keep fighting. What about you? Your use case has to be split now because these guys don't want to get along, right? That's a dissatisfier. Very good. Okay, so here's a couple that I am bringing to the table here. Reviews may be biased. And it's not just that someone is trying to trick you, it's also non-response bias. So can you please raise your hand if you've used Yelp in the last 6 months? Show of hands. Oh, you have as well? Okay, okay. Please raise your hand if you've left a review in the last 6 months. You've left a review. Plenty of reviews, okay? You're a power user, that's great. Thank you for your service. we're mooching off you. Good and bad reviews, that's great. If you don't mind me just probing a little further, what is your motivation for writing a review? Why? Okay. Okay, okay, fantastic. Have you ever left I assume it's 1 stars and 4 stars mostly, is that true? Yeah? Rarely a 3, okay. Would you say less than 10% of the time it's a 3? Okay, there you go. It's non-response bias right there. For those of us who are familiar with statistics and cognitive biases and such, this is called a non-response bias. People only leave reviews if they're really, really ecstatic or really, really pissed off. That's why I look for the 3-star reviews because someone actually thought about it, right? It's not like a road rage kind of thing. It's like, wait a minute, 1 star, no, they weren't that bad. Right? The waitress seemed nice. I don't want to screw these guys. Okay, I'll put a thoughtful review in, right? But the point is, most of us don't leave reviews, right? So it's either polar extreme. Yes, sir.
Many years ago, I owned a restaurant.
Oh, okay, great.
People came to me and they paid them a fee and they wanted a whole lot of people to write reviews.
See, there you go.
And once I've seen that, I didn't trust any of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So we haven't even gotten to the fraud part of it. There is legitimate non-response or organic non-response bias. If 1,000 people have been to this restaurant and only 20 have left reviews, 1 stars or 4 stars, is that really close to the ground truth? Not really. Plus there's fraud. You can buy, incidentally for Bitcoin, in a few Bitcoin, you can buy, 100 reviews that someone in India is gonna sit down and write. All sorts of, hey, this is Tom for Cupertino, and just had a great time at this Chinese restaurant, right? So yeah, that happens, and it's a cat and mouse game. Yelp is sometimes good at flagging spam reviews, but there's a cottage industry for it. People sell their Yelp. I'm assuming you aren't part of this industry. But there's people that write Yelp reviews full time, and they say, well, I have 3,000 reviews. My word has waiting. So restaurant, I'm just letting you know, I am a power user of Yelp. So maybe I'll have some free dessert, right, or something to that effect. Or they outrightly sell their profile. That happens. So there's fraud. So I think you're getting the gist of it. So I feel there is a lot of bias, fraud, distance from the truth that reviews currently suffer from. Right? There's also the full solution, if you will. Your use case when you go out to a restaurant is more than just finding it. You're just starting with the problem, right? Now you found a Thai restaurant you want to go to, Then you have to go, look, okay, well, directions. So Google Maps, right? And then, is there parking or is there not parking, right? Is it paid, is it unpaid? And is there a wait? Should I call them? Should I use Open Door? I don't know if they work with Open Door. It's a small-scale restaurant. And so all these, it's a bunch of use cases. And there's no full solution to it. There's a bunch of different services which exist for the reason that we discussed earlier. All of this is time-consuming. Why can't we? Sorry?
So Google Maps by itself is no use through that Waze.
Yes. Well, do you know Waze is part of Google?
I know it would have worked.
Yeah. Yes, they bought them a few years ago. But you're right. It's yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think they have a limited view of the Waze data. You haven't fully integrated it. But yeah, I think you're right. It's yeah. So it's jumping between different apps.
The brand itself is causing another problem.
Yes.
The local cities,
Mhm.
Waze routes people through.
Yes.
They're changing their regulations.
Hmm.
When you got in Foster City,
Mhm.
you got 3 changes in routing at specific times in the afternoon and morning to stop people from coming from 101 to 92 and everywhere. Which
Oh, wow.
means all of us who live there,
Hmm.
we have to take these circuitous routes
Yeah.
to do what we want.
Yeah, it's messy. It's messy. So yeah, I mean, is it too much to ask? I am a lazy guy, okay? I don't want to have to jump through these apps. Is it too much to ask? You know that I always go out Friday night with my family. You know I'm married. You know I have a kid. You know I'm vegetarian most of the time. You know that I like Asian food. I don't like Italian. Is it too much to ask that at 6 p.m. Friday night, you send me, Mr. Sharma, here's a restaurant. It's got great parking. We have a reservation for you, right? All you have to do is get in your car and drive.
That's what AI is doing.
Is it?
That's what people are trying to. They're taking
Yeah.
your data and presenting you with positive results.
May I suggest to you, is it an AI problem? What does AI tell you? AI tells you that, hey, based on the data I have, here's how smart I can be, right? What if you don't have the data? It's actually not too, I just mentioned to you, it's actually not too hard to figure out my life. It's not that interesting. I shop on Amazon, sometimes I use social media, all my location data is with Google. Why can't they do it? They don't have a 360 view, right? Because of the data siloization that we talked about. So you're right about AI to a certain extent. AI can solve certain classes of problems. They've gotten, and I used to be fairly bullish on AI, but I think people are over-indexing on the techniques used today and how magical they can be, right? The self-driving cars, they're always 5 years away every 5 years, right? And you hope there isn't one in your neighborhood, because you've seen the kind of challenges and safety issues that they have. It's a complex problem, right? So deep learning, especially, you're familiar with deep learning, I take it? It's got limitations. Right?
So they're like when they first came out.
Yes, so your point is the technology will evolve, but what I'm suggesting is the current approaches to AI are very data hungry. You would agree with that? So, but the problem then reduces to data. How does Google have, if Google had Amazon data, which they won't, if they had Facebook data, which they won't, then they could be smarter in the recommendations and stuff they show me. But it's because of the siloization, the silos that exist, you understand? They can each run their AI on the data that they have, but they don't have a 360 view. That's why, when I mentioned earlier, we have a service-centric view on the internet. We don't have a user-centric view. Is your name John? Okay, so we don't have John's data store, which has got everything, right? And I would suggest if you had John's store, you wouldn't need AI. There's no, your favorite color is red. We don't need AI. We just know that the last 4 shirts you bought was that color. I don't need AI. I just need the data. Even with commodity AI, I can do much better recommendations if I had the data. The data is the problem. But we can talk about more, so AI can have better approaches, and that's probably another talk. Let me just quickly mention. So there's 2 schools of thought in AI. It's basically nature versus nurture. So nurture says, just like the human brain thinks, nurture says you can learn things, right? That's the deep learning approach. You feed it more data, it learns new things, right? But the nature approach says there's something innate about the human brain that is able to extrapolate small data into big insights, right? For instance, you don't have to touch a burning piece of coal 10,000 times to understand it's a bad idea, right? Let's say you did that. You hold something hot, and my 3-year-old daughter can do this. She doesn't need 10,000 data points, thankfully, of accidents. But when you touch something hot, you know that it hurts, right? So the next time you're close to something that's warm, maybe it's something else, you can extrapolate and say, my nature, my innateness of my cognition tells me that it's a bad idea to touch this hot object. Deep learning cannot do that.
Downside of that kind of thing
Yes.
is that you miss other opportunities. For example, I held in my hand a piece of the shepherd tile. It was
Yes.
glowing red hot.
Yes.
I took it right out of the oven, put it in. Because the specific gravity of that is so low, that you don't get burned. I would not, no one in the room wanted to pick it up. I took it out, the man took it out of the oven, put it on the table, picked it up. And he was holding tongs.
Right.
To make us, but yet he picked it up every time. So you will miss those kinds of things that you just depend on.
Right. It's a balance. It's a balance. Thankfully, those of us who are a little bit advanced of age rely on experience in a lot of things, right? Let's say in personal relationships. You know, maybe that's it. I don't want to get into sensibilities here. So, but you know, you make judgment calls that, hey, it's a bad idea to behave in a certain manner. You don't need 10,000 data points to do that. Right? So there's some level of experience, but you also apply your cognition and your innateness of intelligence on top of the data, the fewer data points you have. That's the main point. So when you're saying, when you're extending a cognitive task as complex as driving in New York City, oh my God. You know, you have to be a Uber drivers, you can tell. They're struggling and say, hey, I just came in from Hoboken. Right? What do I do? Right? It's a task that requires innate abilities, but also experience, right? We're at least 30 years away from doing self-driving in New York City. Yeah, you can do freight trucks, right? Uber's doing truck. I'm more bullish on Uber's freight truck division, because it's a fairly routine task. You get in the lane, you put your hand out, you keep going until Atlanta. And if a kid does this, blow the horn, right? That's something that can be easily modeled in AI, because it's a fairly routine task. So it's going to be a combination of the two. But what were we talking about again? Okay. But I will posit that in the near-term future, the main opportunities are actually from data interplay and not so much AI. And by the way, AI is hardly proprietary. Right? Most of it is open source. And Google is doing its research, but the nature of mostly academic research is that you want to open source it. That's what PhDs tend to like. And I don't know, I'm not a PhD, so maybe someone can explain it to me. But most of high academic research projects are open sourced. I can get TensorFlow today, right? Or I can pay Amazon pennies for 1,000 insights on its machine learning as a service. It's very cheap, it's proprietary, right? So the difference in value that you can add really comes from the data. Everyone has access to AI, 90% of it anyway, right? Okay. Okay, what if we use a solution? So remember we were talking about the problem, sorry, it was several minutes ago. Your problem was you wanted to find a restaurant that works for you with all the other use cases described, parking and vegetarian and Asian and all those kind of things, right? Why are we searching? Why are we solving this problem? The guy next to you has already solved the problem. The first problem in search is why search? Why should you have to search? Why can't I use Jesse's solution? Right? He's already solved the problem 5 minutes ago. He found the Thai restaurant. He did his search, right? Can I use his solution? Why not? It's a good solution. He knows what he's doing. He knows Thai restaurants. I know based on his information history. What if I could use other person's solution? And what if there was a business model around it that incentivizes this sharing of solutions? That's what blockchain can do. Okay? So here's a high level, I mean, it's not exactly technical, but let's say we think of a world where there's producers and consumers of information. In the example I described earlier, let's say you're looking for that restaurant recommendation. There's people that have already solved that problem. Doing their search, doing, parking, maybe they called the place, it's happening, maybe the chef that actually makes good food is in today, right? Those could be the producers of information. And what if they could be anonymous? Privacy could be a concern here, right? I don't want to, Sean, I don't want to, you probably wouldn't be feeling comfortable if I could just use your location and knowing it's your data, right? That could allow me to track you around. So, but what if you're anonymous or pseudonymous, as the Bitcoin parlance goes? What if you could just be identified with a Bitcoin address, which most people are comfortable with because they transact with it? So you're effectively anonymous. You're feeding your information into this marketplace. So let's say we track your location and your timestamps, and we can figure out that there is a Thai restaurant in Cupertino that, Sean, you visited 3 times this month, so I'm assuming you like it or are somehow compelled to go there, right? And you spent less than 10 minutes parking. I can actually determine that because with your location timestamps, there is good data, and AI can be used in this as well. I can determine that the way you slowed down and the way you drove around, that's a good signal for attempting to park, and it took you 10 minutes, so it's actually an easy parking situation. That's a solution that I have now, right? I can use that solution as the consumer of that data. So what you do is you put everything into all these information points into the Bitcoin blockchain, and then you develop a peer-to-peer marketplace over it. You serve it through a recommendation system, and then, most importantly, you have a business model around it. So, sorry, what was your name? Karen. So if I use your data, let's say I'm looking for a bank, right? And maybe Morgan Stanley is, arguably you could be biased about it, but let's say you bank at some other bank that you're very happy with, and I'm looking for one. I could use your solution, but I have to pay for it because you should be compensated in some manner. There should be an incentive system. It's a marketplace so that the producers of that information, in that case you, get compensated with it. But here's the beauty of it. You don't have to pay out of pocket. You pay with your data just like you do today, except we've created efficiencies in the system that we don't use to show you stupid ads. We actually move that data around between producers and consumers that actually use that information for utility. Yes, sir. Chris. Yeah. So the gentleman in the back, sorry, what was your name? Sitting next to Karen? Kurt. So he is a power user of such a system. Because let's say he, on a at par basis, goes out more often, is very social, goes to all these locations, and is okay with sharing his information. So that's a power user. If I could sniff your real question, you're thinking about imbalances in the system where some people could generate a lot of data and others not so much? Is that the nature of your question?
Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It almost seems like there's 2 ways to thought. If the real power user actively
Mhm.
consider that service, they have the right to go be a power user for
Yes. Mhm.
My initial thought is that someone in this ideal system,
Hmm.
power user would be someone who naturally
Mhm.
is providing the
Yes. That's possible. So a couple of things on that. So first, we want to reduce the notion of power users. We're all power users. The problem is our information assets are not available to use to anyone else because we didn't leave a review, because we don't care. We don't have the incentives to leave a review. And in this case, we don't ask you anything. You just put in your location. Your location is a vote in the system. Yes, in the back?
you know, tracking this now, I mean, in this scenario, or is this another service? This from
Yeah, so this is a Bitcoin-based app. It's a new service that, in fact, we're building. So we're thinking about the business model around it. But so yeah, it's a new service that you would use that securely writes your data to the blockchain. So we will never know it's you, it's pseudonymous. Go ahead.
So if you take the example of Yelp,
Mhm.
so narrow domain, you
Yes.
see, hosting, giving data for Yelp-like use cases,
Yes.
or where the user controls data.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, but let me, 1 second, please. So, Chris, I didn't finish answering your question. So, the first thing is we want to have more quote-unquote power users. Even if they didn't, we don't want reviews. We just want their location data that is useful to others, right? I am a power user. I eat out a lot. Maybe you could tell. But I never leave a review, right? But my location data is valuable to people. I've found all these crazy places that may not be adequately represented on Yelp, or there's some personalization there. Maybe someone else who's like me, who has a family, hates parking, likes spicy food, maybe has more dessert than needed, right? Those kind of things. So that's a good solution to someone else. So I want to have more quote-unquote power users in the system. That's one. And secondly, it's a paid market system. So if you are what's the opposite of a power user? Weak? No. Okay, all right, scratch that. Okay, so a non-power user can pay, right? If, let's say, and that would actually create different opportunities. A lot of times what happens is, and this isn't limited to just location, this marketplace can be extended to other use cases. Let's say it's a high-profile scenario. You're buying an engagement ring, right? You'd pay $50 to get to the right jeweler so that it saves you money and perhaps a lot of emotional cost, right? So would you go with Yelp? I wouldn't. I'd probably call some people. I'd probably ask some girlfriends of mine or something, all of which I've done. And I was very happy with the results. But so those kind of high-profile scenarios, maybe you don't have enough data to pay into the system. Then you're okay with paying $50 for a good recommendation. There's some scenarios that could do that. So this system allows you, because we're using Bitcoin, or in this case Bitcoin, which is effectively money, you can put money into the system and buy. And you can earn money from the system and buy something else. Let's say you're a power user and you earn, $60, $70 or whatever it is a week. You can use it. You can go to purse.io right now, and this may interest you, sir. On the left here, sir, I forgot your name? Okay. Do you know you can actually buy anything on Amazon via Bitcoin? There's a service that allows you to do that. You can buy anything on Amazon using Bitcoin today. Anything. This company called purse.io allows you to do that. So it's effectively, it is money, right? So that kind of evens out the scenarios as well. There are more questions that, yes, in the back. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yes.
But my question is,
Hmm.
where's the line between acceptable usage and not? What happens if I start looking
Mhm.
to look to see what's going on in Santana Row, or to start looking from a business perspective? What's going on in a particular area? What can I glean from that? I'm using that
Hmm.
information not as a trade necessarily,
Yes.
but as a way to make some kind of business decision.
Sure, you can do that. So in that case, whenever there's an information, so in that case, you're a consumer, right? Okay. Yes. Right. Yeah, the scenario could be anything. So we don't judge what you need the information for, right? So that's entirely up to you. and you'll price it accordingly, right? And there's going to be pricing mechanisms behind the scenes that tell you that, hey, this is done today, by the way, with ad mechanisms. If anyone's worked in ad technology, my location's worth $2 CPM. Someone else's location is worth $10 because they live in Manhattan, right? Those kind of things are done in real time today. So yes, you could use the information for a bunch of different purposes. Let me take your thought a little bit further. So another cottage industry, maybe not so cottage, is called syndicated research today. And maybe people who worked in marketing are familiar with that. What happens is, if you want to spend advertising dollars, you often go to, say, a Verizon and say, hey, you have a bunch of consumers in the Bay Area, tell me their location habits. Tell me millennials that are, let's say, a certain demographic, where do they usually shop, right? Verizon sells that data for $1,000 a pop. They'll give you a report that says, well, we don't identify these users, which is fine, which is good, actually, but 70% of millennials shop, I'm totally making this up, I don't know, Macy's, between the hours of 12 and 4 on Saturdays. Like, wow, I should go to Macy's and spend my money, right? That's an example of syndicated research. You could absolutely do that here. With the advantage, you can do everything you can with advertising today, only better and in the interest of the user, and secured by you. So one thing I haven't touched upon is, since your data is absolutely controlled by you, so if you're familiar with cryptography on Bitcoin, we're actually creating transactions that write your data. So let's say, what's your name? Kathy. Let's say you post your location information via this app to the Bitcoin blockchain. We actually have no idea that it's Kathy, and it's encrypted, okay? The client, the software that's running on will be using your phone that uses your location information, and it's completely transparent. You know that it's going on, it's collecting information in background, and it's paying you Bitcoin, completely transparent with you. Only the client will know that it's this location, and it'll just serve a sanitized response back to the server, which is going to say, there is a user who's at Hacker Dojo tonight, right? And the rest of us could say that, right? And here's an example of syndicated research. Let's say, we love the Den. These guys work so hard to get these events together, right? Let's say someone tonight was holding out. Chris has this event, but I don't know if anyone's going to show up. I don't know this Ash guy. He's probably a bunch of hot air. I've never heard of him. Should I show up? I'm in San Francisco, right? Should I actually show up? But let's say we have our location data that gets served up and says, wow, this meetup actually had a lot of people, right? And with their more advanced information, I could say it was a good group. We had people from banks. We had people interested in, let's say, something else. We had people with different levels of experience. So it was actually a good meetup that I should go to. So next time with that information, now I can make a better decision, right? Okay, there are more questions here? Let's go with you first.
So, just so I understand, you're
Yeah.
saying this, my location information is stored there.
Encrypted.
But there should be some metadata around me for someone else to know about my interests in order to contact me
Yes,
for my data.
yes. So your question is, how does that happen?
So, are you saying just location goes in, or
I'll,
you add in
yeah.
more information?
Let me cue in our CTO. I think the hard questions Nahush can answer better. Okay, would you mind repeating the question? By the way, I'm sorry I missed repeating the questions. Yeah, Sujit.
So you mentioned that the location, my location data is going to be the basis by which, another interested party
Yes.
is going to,
The consumer can, yes.
yeah, the consumer is going to contact me, for example. But just
Yeah.
on my location data,
Let me just clarify. So the question was, and I apologize, I missed repeating the questions. You can ask me later. The question is that how will, if the identities, I think it's fundamentally an identity question, if the identities are anonymous, pseudonymous, then how does a consumer contact a producer, right? The answer is they don't need to. We don't want them to. This is not a messaging platform. We're actually using their solution. We don't care who it is as long as the solution's good. We don't have to get in touch with them. Does that make sense? Or are you thinking of something else?
I guess I'm not getting how is the solution good, just because
So how do you assess the...
yeah, I can Jojo 3 times person.
Right.
There's another 5 times person, or
Yeah.
6 times person.
Yes. So what we do is we develop a profile behind the scenes without actually identifying you. So we can say, let's maybe cut down to the chase here. So you have it's basically a Bitcoin wallet that's running on your mobile device that only has a wallet ID, right? So what it does is periodically it sends your location and timestamp associated with that location to the server. So it says wallet ID ABC, Hacker Dojo, and 8:41 p.m. Wednesday night, right? So we get that information, and the server says, okay, interesting, right? Is there a profile that we can develop based on this? Keep in mind, we don't know who you are. We have no mechanism of even contacting you. We can pay you, but we don't have any mechanism to contact you, and we don't want to. This is not a messaging app. I am very careful to not have this devolve into those secret messaging apps that become a cesspool of everything bad you can imagine, right? There's no messaging here. There's plenty of those anonymous platforms. All we care about is let's use someone else's solution, right? Are there any Simpsons fans here? Any chance? Yeah? Man, I should sit down with you. Right? I'm a big Simpsons fan. Maybe back in the day episodes, not the newer ones, right? So there was an episode where Homer Simpson, no, you know this, he runs to be the janitor of the town or something, lead janitor, you know, because he pisses off the janitors, right? And his tagline is, I'm a lazy, lazy guy. Can someone else do it? You remember that? That episode? Okay, maybe you do? Okay. So this is, can someone else do it? I have a query, a restaurant or the meetup I should go to tonight, or the bank account I should open, or whatever. Can someone else do it? I don't want to have to search. It's inefficient for me to solve the same problem that the person next to me, unbeknownst to me, has solved. So it's not a social networking. I think social networks are limiting. First of all, Chris, I'll get to you in a second. First of all, it's highly uncool to ask these questions in a social network, right? I mean, recommendations for a plumber, it's like, at least guys don't do it, right? I don't know, I don't do it. So it's kind of a lot of, we're afraid of being judged, right? Hey, Ash, you're asking for a restaurant recommendation again? Why, man? I don't have time for this. I'm busy posting dessert pictures from the one that I'm at, right? So people don't use social networks for this, and it's limiting. What if the best solution is actually from someone who's not in my social network? Could that happen? Yes. So if that person is in my social network, fine. I don't know about it. They're pseudonymous. But if they're not, fine. All I care about is if the information, the solution that they're offering me is actually worthwhile. That's when they get compensated. Does that answer your question? Excuse me for a second, if I could just go to Chris. Chris, go ahead. Okay, excellent, yeah. I think I am, okay, I think I covered incentives to participate, and yes, there we go. Yes, sir, go ahead.
So we have online users.
Yes.
So I think you did hit a couple of points, but you just wanted clarification on it. So
Yes.
your platform on blockchain will work the recommendation
Mhm.
how to install the situation where fake recommenders really bad activity in that system.
Yeah. So abuse is a big issue, and there's a couple of things we can use. So first of all, there's a pattern of usage that we can identify. It's, you know, and those are the standard practices that are used, so we can use the best of class. You've just signed up and you're asking for all these questions, or you're providing all this information. That's one way to do it. But more importantly, there's a market mechanism at play here. Let's say you're a spammy user, but you gave me a great recommendation, and it actually worked for me. Do I care? Do I care if you're spam? I don't, right? But consistently, you'll only be rewarded by the P2P marketplace if you're actually providing good information. If you're providing, let's say it's very easy to fire up a spammy Bitcoin client and it just starts posting random restaurant reviews, right? More than likely, it's going to catch up with you, and it's not going to be as useful. And by the way, you're spending money every time, let's say you're asking for a recommendation, or we can have certain mechanisms where after a certain point, you have to actually pay to just use the app to make queries in the system, right? So the DDoS issues can also be solved. In fact, it's very, very similarly inspired from how Bitcoin itself works. There is proof of work requirements, there's transaction fees that check very effectively against spammy transactions and such. So it's a bit of a hand-wavy answer, but that's something we'll try to figure out. Yes, that's a good suggestion. And let me cue in deep learning here. So there is sorry if I could draw your attention. Deep learning, AI, that part of it is very good at pattern recognition. So we can identify with good confidence that some people are legitimate users, and we can identify the patterns that they use in terms of how they post their data, how they use transactions, how they actually maybe cash out. So those patterns can be used via deep learning to become solid patterns for identifying abuse as well. So if something doesn't fit the hallmarks of usage there, then we can identify spammy users as well. Okay? Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
I was curious that you mentioned that you're profiling users in the back, and if you're collecting very detailed information about the user, does it, and if you collect enough information, does it essentially become equivalent to identity?
Doesn't it become what?
Equivalent to the identity of the user.
Equivalent to identity, yes. Yeah.
The second question
Yes.
is, in the presence of so many different apps, you have a separate application idea, because just P2P marketplace by itself will keep their options from the users.
Yeah, so let me address the first question first. So you were saying if we're profiling, then there's probably some privacy issues and such, and how do we prevent it from becoming like another Facebook and such, right? Okay, that's the nature of the question. In fact, we were discussing that today. So we're very concerned about privacy, and the way we define profiles is transparent. So we can open source that part of the server and say, here's the schema of the profiles we use. So all we store on the server is wallet ID ABC has a 80% possibility of being male, has a 70% possibility of liking 80s music, has this percentage of likelihood. So that's the level of data we collect. So we're very cognizant of, we want to have a detailed profile, but not to the level that it can be identifiable. And that's important because when you're using location data, it actually can become identifiable, right? So we never store specific location points. So in fact, when Kathy was registering Hacker Dojo, the server has no idea that Kathy actually went to Hacker Dojo. What the server will get is Kathy is someone that goes to technology meetups, okay? So we never want to contain any location histories or specific location points, because that can be used to track people. Basically, if you have someone's home, office, and maybe some other points, then you can identify someone, right? So all of that is managed on the client side, which is secured by your private key, and none of that data ever leaves the client. And we're happy to open source that part of it, so you can verify it as well. Yeah? And your second question, remind me.
So I was wondering what kind of application you're thinking about, because
Yeah.
it's already down
Yeah.
Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Which are already very much embedded in,
Yes. Yeah.
which would actually lead to the collection of
Right.
data.
Yeah, so it's the standard empty restaurant problem, right? How do you get the initial set of users? So what we want to do is there is a well-proven methodology of starting with a beachhead market that actually cares about your solution. So we're starting with college students who will be, I assume, more open to trying new things, especially students, and we've done some research around it, so we've done some customer development, where we found that people who are, let's say, new to a university, they actually want to see, what else, beyond Yelp and Google and such, can I get more specific insights based on what my peer group is doing, right? It's Saturday night, Yelp says go to this bar, but that's actually not where the cool kids hang out. Where do the cool kids hang out? This app can tell you because it's location pings, right? So we want to start with that market, and there is inherent virality with college students. That's the Facebook story essentially, right? So it's not the app itself isn't differentiated, right? It's not the front end and such. I think it's the market and the solution that we provide superior to what's available right now. That's where we start, and hopefully we bootstrap and build up on that. So it's a location-based approach. We'll probably follow the strategy pretty similar to how other college-based apps, including Facebook, started. Okay, more questions? Anything else? Yes, sir. Kurt. Digital blockchain? Additional blockchains? No. Right, so the question is, are we only using Bitcoin blockchain or more blockchains? The answer is the fewer the better, and the answer is one. One is enough, right? So there's specific reasons why we're choosing Bitcoin, and in fact, Bitcoin SV at that. I know there's probably some religious opinions on that, but look, I'm an app developer. What I care about is scalability and security. I want a proven solution with a good roadmap to hopefully lead tens of millions of users, if not more. So I know there's a new blockchain created every day, and I don't care about any of them. I want something that's been around for 10 years, that's highly secure, is scalable, and is developer friendly, right? So there's other solutions as well. Ethereum most notably comes to mind, and I'm not going to get into a Bitcoin versus Ethereum boxing match. It's a religious war. What's better, Buddhism or Christianity? I don't know. I don't have the answers. So, but I'm going with Bitcoin for specific reasons. Ethereum has its own merits. But would I choose anything else? No. I don't have confidence that they can be secure or scale. Does that answer your question? Okay. Well, thank you. Let me cue in Alok. Thank you. You've been amazing.
Well, this concludes lecture series part 5. Next week we'll be having tokenomics and crypto economics. We have some good speakers in store for you guys. Thank you for coming out to the Hacker Dojo. Thank you, Ash from Friday Night Labs. Please check him out. Twitter handle. You can come ask him questions. He's available. Especially us. We're available too. Me, Chris, Jason. And you can go to our website at www.theden.io. And Telegram, YouTube, we have a good community. So check us out. Thank you.